Episode 1. Yesterday night, I managed to meet two sisters whose father worked as an electrical engineer and was in charge of the 14 places of Prince Abdurrahman in Riyadh. As a collector of formidable real-life events that I am, I had a talk with them over cold pasta and good coffee. Since I cannot disclose the names, I'll call one of the sisters Maryam and continue with the series of events that occurred inside the 100-year-old palace. Maryam did not live inside the palace, but rather outside it. Surrounded by the palace boundaries with her family, the palace remained empty as the of their other mansions. Whenever Amma Munira, the lady of the house, would visit, Maryam's father would be informed beforehand so that their family and the other families living there could make the necessary arrangements. From the entrance to where the palace started was a huge distance of the two botanical gardens and a tank that was responsible for the water supply in the house. Once, when Maryam's family was entering the palace, they saw that the whole house was lit up. It seemed as a festive activity was going on. There were people cheering who could be seen and heard from the distance, and lights hung from the gigantic walls. Confused, else forced, and now aware of the event scheduled for that day, the family drove inside slowly. The closer they drove, the dimmer the lights and sounds got. When they reached inside, the palace stood on its roots, weeran as ever. These jinns that lived there did not do any harm, but would often have their presence known. Sometimes there would be an awful lot of crying in the middle of the night for continuous days, and that is when they would know that someone from the jinn family had passed away. Maryam's mother would smell a specific cuisine in the air, as if the lid of the freshly prepared dish in a dekchi had been lifted. She would then have to make that very dish in the next few days, and the sightings would lessen. Usually the dish was zurda. The jinns adored it. The jinns would protect Maryam's father as he was a religious man, and so when once a horrid-looking Bisa, Arabic for cat, the size of the living room mattress with crooked yellow eyes appeared in front of Maryam's mother. None of them could get rid of it except Maryam's father. The unpleasant creature, as Maryam's mother terms it, was anything but a cat, and it would follow her around her house. It seemed as its eyes had been glued open, alert as anything. When Maryam's father saw the cat after a few days and called out to it, the creature leaped in dread and panic and clawed its way over the wall. A dear friend of Maryam's father lived in Riyadh as well. His name was Shah Sahab, and he could sense presence. And each time Maryam's father visited him, he would say, "Kabhi akele bhi aa jaya kare janab." There was a reason that Maryam's father attracted entities. Some humans have a different aura. They can be a portal between the spiritual and the living sometimes. This ability runs through generation. Maryam and her sisters don't have it. Neither do Maryam's offspring. Maryam's grandmother was the first to have it, and what happened with her is rather interesting. This dates back to the early 90s when her grandmother, Noreen Bibi, was an alluring woman in her preteens, with her hair that took 2 women to braid, a skin that glistened in the summer heat. Noreen Bibi radiated beauty at a very young age. She wasn't fair, but she wasn't pale either. Her almond-colored hair went well with her milk-like skin. She complained of dreaming of a rather odd-looking man. They weren't nightmares, but only pleasant dreams. and they started after her first period ended. The man appeared to be riding a unicycle, and he wore a funny hat. Noreen Bibi could never make out the shape of the hat. He would pick Noreen Bibi up, and soon by the mid of the dream she would be riding that very bicycle with the man. He drove very fast. And as eerie as it sounds, on some days Noreen Bibi could cover the distance between Riyadh and Taif in less than an hour, which was humanly impossible by road. She would close her eyes, and when she would open them, she would see the mountains of Taif. It was as if the men from her dreams picked her from one place and dropped her to the next. The man smelled of sweet basbousa, and he showed her places made of glass, promising her that it will eventually end up in one. Noreen Bibi got married at the age of 17 to her second cousin, who lived in the village adjacent to theirs. Years after their marriage, Noreen Bibi, her husband, and her sister-in-law were walking back from a wedding at night. They were near a railway station when the three of them heard a very coarse voice call out Noreen Bibi's name. "Begum Noreen, Muhyiddin it is," it said. The voice took Noreen Bibi's late father's name and not her husband's. The three looked behind themselves to find a very large man sitting on a unicycle, extending his strangely long arm to Noreen Bibi. Noreen Bibi's husband grasped her sister's hand and attempted to run. He then realized that he had forgotten his wife, who now was walking towards that poor Asrar Adami. He came back, pulled her towards himself, and ran with both of the women back to their village. It had been the jinn from Noreen Bibi's dreams. Nothing except the dreams continued for the years to follow. When Noreen Bibi turned 30, she started to feel a weight on her shoulders. Her periods became longer than usual and her cooking skills improved drastically. She could suddenly make dishes she never had before. Her basbousa gained popularity and started entertaining orders from the city. Noreen Bibi soon fell sick and lost her ability to speak. Many wise men of religion who visited her told her husband that she has a very innate jinn inside her. The jinn is a male but does not dare touch Noreen Bibi. On describing what the jinn looked like to Noreen Bibi's husband, it was concluded that the entity was the same that his wife had dreamed of all her life. Noreen Bibi requested her husband to allow the jinn to take over her body in order for it to be able to communicate. An elaichi and a piece of paper was placed in Noreen Bibi's mouth. Reported that her features changed and broadened. Noreen Bibi could be recognized, but she appeared somewhat manly. The jinn wrote ayats and helped people through Noreen Bibi. This happened numerous times till Noreen Bibi did not have the ability to handle the impact of possession episodes anymore. When she passed away, the jinn appeared at her funeral in the shape of a young boy and wept for 2 days straight. He also wrote a Quran in the most magnificent calligraphy. Coming back to Mariam's father, Noreen Bibi's son, who should be noted that was a pious man, but the evil took better of him, was envied by his very own blood relations. Shah Sahab, the man from Riyadh who was a dear friend of Mariam's father, reported on seeing him after a decade that the black magic and amal done on him could not be reversed. A lock with his name and had been put in the model town Kabristan between the intestines and the stomach of a Christian man, and the padhai that needed to be done was very powerful. Mariam's father died 15 days later. All his clothes were found with bright red spots and a foul-smelling blood. End of story. Thank you for listening. Take care. Allah Hafiz.